In this video, we're going to go through two examples of subtracting linear expressions. So I have here, first one, 7x plus 4 minus the quantity 2x minus 3. So the first step I'm going to do is within my two expressions that I'm subtracting, I'm going to change any subtraction I see into addition. So the first one, I don't have to do that. I have 7x plus 4 minus, and then here I have 2x minus 3, right? And subtracting 3 is the same thing as adding negative 3. So I'm rewriting minus 3 as plus negative 3. Alright, then what I'm going to do, same concept, I'm going to change the subtraction I have of the two expressions into addition. So I still have 7x plus 4. And now I hear a subtraction, a minus sign. That's the same thing as adding the opposite. So here I was subtracting the positive version of this quantity, 2x minus 3. And I'm going to change that to adding the negative version of that. Now for us, I'm going to write this as negative 1. So if we think about what we've been doing in the past, we're pretty comfortable with subtraction is the same thing as adding the opposite, right? And if I have minus 3, that's the same thing as adding negative 3. But if I wanted to write it, I could say that's the same thing as adding negative 1 times 3, because multiplying by 1 doesn't change anything. And that just might help you when you do the distributing, to think of this not just as a minus sign or a negative, because what does that really mean? But a negative 1. Alright, so then from there, I'm going to try to get rid of the parentheses by doing whatever I need to. So first, I have 7x plus 4. There's nothing out front, so I don't need to distribute or anything. I'm done. Perfect. And then here I have a negative 1, or that negative, out front of these parentheses. So I need to use the distributive property to get rid of the parentheses. So I do negative 1 times 2x. Just write that out to be clear. Negative 1 times 2x plus negative 1 times negative 3. And then I'm going to try to simplify some things. Negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x. And negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. So what we'll see is that negative, right, the negative 1, the negative, it just switches the sign. So that should be a good check for yourself. And you can get to a point where you can do that in your head. But you want to show the steps for a while to make sure you're not making mistakes, because it's really, really easy to make a sign error here. But we're switching 2x to negative 2x and negative 3 to positive 3. That's taking the opposite of it, because subtracting that quantity, same as adding the opposite. So you switch those signs. Alright, and then from here, the last step, we need to combine the like terms. I have 7x and negative 2x. So I'm going to combine those and get 5x. 7 plus negative 2 is 5. And then I have 4 and 3. Just add those together and I get 7. So my final answer here is 5x plus 7. And again, just going through the steps we did, we wanted to rewrite subtraction and addition within the expressions. Then we rewrote our subtraction sign as adding negative or adding the negative 1. We use the distributive property to distribute that negative 1, and then we combine the like terms. So it's a lot of steps. It's combining a lot of things we've done so far. Alright, here we have example 2 with the quantity negative 4x minus 3 minus 2 times 4x plus 1. There's a lot going on here. This one is a little bit different, has one more extra step of the last one, because instead of just having minus this quantity 4x plus 1, we have the 2 out front. But it's not really going to change anything. Alright, so step 1, within our quantities that we see, when we see subtraction, let's rewrite that as addition. So I have negative 4x minus 3, just like last time, is the same thing as adding negative 3. Then I'm subtracting 2 times 4x plus 1. Already addition, so we don't have to do anything there. Alright, now I want to change this subtraction sign, the main subtraction sign, into addition. So subtracting is the same as adding the opposite, right? So I replace the minus with adding a negative. And then you could write like negative 1 times 2, but since the 2 is already out front, we can just carry that negative sign with the 2. So subtracting 2 times this thing is the same thing as adding negative 2 times this thing. Alright, and then from there we're going to need to distribute, try to get rid of the parentheses. So for this expression, I'm just adding, there's nothing out front to be multiplied, so I can just get rid of the parentheses as is. Here though, I need to distribute the negative 2. So I do negative 2 times 4x plus negative 2 times 1. And then from there, we're just going to simplify. Negative 2 times 4x is negative 8x, and negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And then our last step is to combine the like terms. I have negative 4x and negative 8x. Add those together to get negative 12x. Since they were both negative, we add the absolute values of the number and keep the sign. And then same situation here. We have a negative 3 and a negative 2. So we're going to add those together and we'll get a negative 5. So we'd say negative 12x plus negative 5 is our final answer. Or you could write that as negative 12x minus positive 5. Because subtracting is the same thing as adding the opposite. So that's just going in the other direction. So if you have a number out front, a coefficient to one of the quantities, process is really the exact same. You just have to keep that negative with it. And be sure to distribute.